One. Okay, I'll call this Executive Finance Committee meeting for May to order at 8:02. I can guarantee that certification of open meeting law requirements have been met. You have an amended agenda in front of you, 14 items.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any comments, questions? Okay.
Rick Niemeyer and I have been working on the resolution for, under number 11, funding electric bill for county food co-op, or food pantry. He isn't here, and I haven't got a copy of it, so. But he is coming? Okay, so.
I met him in the parking lot.
All right, so hopefully we'll be able to at least describe what the request is and move from there.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Okay, any other comments on the agenda? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Okay, when we received our notice of the meeting, we got a copy of minutes of last month's meeting. Motion to approve those. Okay, motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the April 5th meeting. Anybody look those over? Yeah, okay, we got, okay, yep, we got a second. Okay, anybody notice anything that we need to correct or change? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, and now we will take our short break. If members of the community are watching this meeting and would like to ask us a question or make some comments, you can call at this time. The number is 715-538-1770. So we'll give them a couple of minutes. Boy, that courthouse went down in a hurry, didn't, or that whole school.
Well, not as fast as we thought it was, because they were very careful when they were.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, the beams. Let's see if I can, I think I can show you.
Well, I see on the cable TV network, there's actually a video of it, I think.
Yes, this is the last part that went.
Oh, the beams.
Yep. Said the,
Where did he go, you know?
I saw part of them on Fridays laying there, broken up like, so I don't know if they were saved or not. But
I heard they were rotten, that's what they said.
they were rotten? Oh, I hadn't. I know it doesn't take long when there's no heat in the building.
Yep.
It does not last. They're not coming today. They wanted to keep it on.
Just in case they.
Just like a habitual one to stay on.
Okay, we've given people a couple minutes. If you still want to call, you're still welcome to. Moving on to our next item, our county sales tax update. Paul, I assume you'll take that?
Yeah, and strangely this time, the Department of Revenue was very late in, I didn't even check this morning. They hadn't even posted our payment for April. But luckily Lori called me and said she had gotten a deposit. So we're assuming that this $171,460.95 is our April payment for sales tax, which falls in line with last year, $173,000, and way above the year before at $129,000. So we're at $337, which puts us, at least $12,000 ahead of last year.
When we got to remember, last year was pandemic already at this
Right,
time, too. so-
and we brought in 214,000 more last year than we did. Budgeted, I should say.
Okay, any questions for Paul? Okay, I can move right on to general fund then.
Okay, that one shows that the actions that were taken at the April County Board meeting, so we're at $1,899,433.50.
Any questions for Paul on the general fund balance?
That was a lot of action.
What? Yeah, you guys spent a little bit of money last time.
We're still in pretty good shape, aren't we? Okay, no questions there, then we'll move with Samuels. There's no one here. Like we were mentioning earlier, that we put that on the agenda every month just in case he does need to bring us up to date on anything. And then we'll go on to our department reports. Lori?
Good morning.
Morning.
I think,
She's got a mic.
yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
you should have received the report with your
Yep.
agenda. No good news again this month. The interest rates have even dropped further. Yeah, did anyone have any questions on the report?
At least we're not paying them to hold our money.
Right, yeah, that happened before in Europe. The last time the interest rates went way down. Tax delinquencies, I do have good news there. They're about 200,000 less than they were last year at this time, so we've been getting some good payments in there.
Okay, are there any questions for Lori? Okay, thank you very much. And then moving on to the Register of Deeds, Rose?
Okay, I set the,
That should have been in your package.
Yep, that
too.
was in our packet. If you can either go to the stand or sit down at a mic so that people, if they're watching online, can hear you.
Push the button.
Hold the mic towards you.
perfect, thank you. There was a report sent with the packets. You'll see, this is just a report showing the electronic recording in comparison to the paper documents. You'll see in 2017, the law changed for the apps for the banks where they had to track their documents. So a lot of those in 2018 then started doing it electronically because electronically they have, when we would reject a document, there is a paper trail. So that's why there was a big jump between 2017 and 2018. And now with the pandemic, everything is continuing to go up electronically because just because everybody's staying home or working from home. So a lot of things are going electronic. I did a quick run through the end of April, from January to April of this year. Now it's up to 77, almost 78%. So it's continuously going up. And then there's another chart in there showing where the electronic recording, you'll see that 72 of the 72 counties in Wisconsin are electronically recording, so. And we had talked about, Paul had sent I'm looking at scanning some more documents in our office, and Paul had requested to see if it would fall under the FEMA. So I talked to our land records vendor, and he's going to get an estimate and check things out, and I'll probably bring that to you next month. They're going to, because of the health and safety, if we can get all the grantor grantee indexes, that's what the abstractors have to follow. That's the one thing I don't have scanned, so if they have to look at the grantor grantee, they have to come to our office. So it would be best to have it scanned so that they can look at that online. So I'm going to get that estimate. We also have a lot of genealogists that come into our office, so we're kind of putting them off right now during this pandemic. So I'm going to have them take a look at the records prior to 1907, because the only ones that are available are in our office from that time forward. Anything older than that they can get from the state or it's online, but those older ones are only in our office. So we're going to try to keep them out of our office and get them scanned too. So
The older, you mean 1907 and back?
correct, older, yep. Yep. And there are only one of them, and that's in our office, so I'll bring that to you next month, and we're hoping that that grant will cover that cost.
Do you take care of applying for that, or does she do it, the FEMA?
Well, she brought the estimate, or whatever you want to call it, the initial one to me, and I did send it to Integrity. And at first thought they didn't think it would qualify, but if we can justify, just kind of what Rose said, we can try and submit it again. It was around 12,000.
Right, but I'm looking at older records now too, so it'll be, but I'll get a good estimate next month.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Rose?
Just because I'm curious. So when you're e-filing a document, how does it get paid for? I mean, there's obviously a fee involved. Or we do have electronic payments now, right?
All of those things have to go through a submitter, and they have to apply with the submitter, and then the submitter sends an ACH to my checking account.
A what?
ACH? The submitter has to,
Oh, okay. So who is the submitter?
we have, one is called like a simple file, one is CSC, EPN. Those are, the state has to qualify them to
Yeah.
be, because you can't send an email because that's not secure. So there's a secure site that these abstractors, banks, and attorneys send the documents through.
Okay. But we do get paid?
We get paid, yes. If we don't get paid, then I jump up and down.
Does that help?
Doesn't hurt.
Look in the window, she's jumping up and down.
We know what's happening. Okay, anything else for Rose? Okay, thank you very much for your report. Okay, then, next thing we have on the agenda then is an overrun resolution.
And I'm halfways happy to report that departments are doing much, much better. There's only one overrun, and it's me. But one thing with the accounting or the auditing, this is our auditors anyway, the things that I'm missing, I guess you'd have to say, is all the new GASB regulations. Every year, there's a new regulation that comes up that has to be put into the audit, and those are things that I'm missing every year, and I never know really when they're gonna happen. So this time we had two new ones, GASB 84, and now I can't remember what the other number was, 60-something I was. So I was $9,726 off this year in auditing. So that'll have to come from the general fund if you allow it.
Okay, I'll read it, and then, or should we make a motion to get it on the agenda first, or do I read it
You
first?
can read it first.
Okay, you were given a copy.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been talking first.
Okay, you were all given a copy of this 2020 budget amendment to address departmental overruns. Whereas the expenditure of funds exceeding those provided in the budgeting process or by resolution of the county board is contrary to Wisconsin statutes 59.23, 2, comma, or close C, and 660607, 7. And whereas various departments have reviewed 2020 appropriations, expenditures, and possible overdrafts in their representative accounts, and whereas the following department was presented to the Executive Finance Committee showing deficits in their accounts for 2020. Now be it resolved that the 2020 budget is amended with funds transferred from the county unassigned general fund account 101.32100 to the following accounts in the amount as noted in the table below. So account 101.51415, special accounting and auditing for an amount of $9,726.
Move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by John,
Second.
second by Tim. Any, you kind of have talked about it already
I'm
then?
sorry, I jumped the gun on that, yep.
Are there any questions for Paul regarding this budget item? Boy, nobody's commenting. Okay, if hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay,
Sign this one.
yep, okay, we'll sign that one then. There we go. Okay, our next item then is discussion / action regarding the realignment of the land records from Department of Land Management within the oversight by the Executive Finance Committee and realignment of the real property lister GIS specialist position from land records to the Treasurer's Office with oversight by the Environmental or Executive Finance Committee. Beth Killian contacted me last week, wanted to get this on the agenda, so she has a short presentation regarding this. And then at the same time, Paul mentioned that, John, you had mentioned something to Paul about some ideas you had on this. Okay, so we'll let you go first, Beth.
Thank you for letting me come this morning. I've been giving this a lot of thought in the past few months, and so I kind of prepared a scripted timeline. At the November 4th, 2020 Environment and Land Use Committee, Ann Hempel gave a report on her department. At this time, she stated a merger with the Department of Land Management took place in 2015, and she became the supervisor of the real property lister and shortly after hired the GIS technician. She also mentioned in 2011, her title became Land Records Modernization Coordinator, and at that time she also asked to detach from the DLM. At the December 2nd, 2020 ELU meeting, more discussion was held on detachment. There was concern for physically moving even though remodeling had just been completed. Also, Killian brought up the added workload, which last month Hempel stated there was no need for additional staff. Leon stated that zoning issues, violations and splits, were assigned to the real property lister before the merger with DLM. This was decided by Joe Nelson, Kevin Leon, and Nick Gamroth years before. When Gamroth left, another staff member in land records took on that role but was not successful. When Gamroth returned, he picked that ball back up. At the January 6, 2021 meeting, discussion possible action on land records request to formally detach from Department of Land Management. We had discussion and then any other action to be taken in regard to closed session. Motion was made by Killian, seconded by Brandt, that land records and the real property lister will remain in the Department of Land Management since there is no physical place to move them to. All Department of Land Management employees will follow the current Department of Land Management protocol for time reporting. This will be reviewed by the ELU committee in 6 months. The motion in favor carried unanimously. In an email from Ann Hempel to Gene Galazinski, who's a PTED member, on March 16th of 2021, Ann stated, also, I am still pursuing a detachment from land management, which will be reviewed by ELU in June, so I would leave my name, position out of any future job descriptions. At the joint PTED and ELU committee meetings on April 7th of 2021, Nick Gamroth stated, currently, right now, Ann Hempel is my direct supervisor, and though I highly respect her as a boss and colleague, this was a product of the short time I wasn't here. I want it to be known I have no issues working under her, but like I stated before, I will not let my past years be forgotten, and that is why I was involved with trying to detach the Land Records Department. I still have not heard of 3 good reasons why it needed to stay together, but if this detachment doesn't happen, I will be formally going to the full county board and detach the real property lister position and bring it back to what it was prior to 2013. It appears that Mr. Gamroth and Ms. Hempel aren't happy with the present situation, and even though it is not quite 6 months, I feel it is time to detach. Apparently, Mr. Gamroth wants to go back to 2013. I don't know what his status was at that time. Was he his own department and supervisor? So I am proposing that the real property lister be detached into the treasurer's office, since he works with taxes and the treasurer works with taxes. That position would report to exec finance monthly. I am proposing that land records return to exec finance, since that is the committee it reported to prior to the merger. In this proposal, land records would physically be moved to the Packer room until the remodel is complete. According to preliminary remodel plans, land records has space already carved out without being officially detached. I would also request that this department report monthly to the committee. This is the proposal I am making to the ELU on Wednesday, but I wanted to get your thoughts first. If you would decide to keep the real property lister with the land records department under exec finance, I would ask that you would carefully manage the department. Thank you for my thoughts, listening to my thoughts.
Okay, and the reason we have it at exec finance, because if Nick does go to the treasurer's office, then he would be under Lori, who's under our jurisdiction right now. So that's why we're discussing it here.
Chairman Wallach, can I
Yes.
answer some of her questions?
Yep.
So prior to 2013, Supervisor Killing, I was a department of 1, and that was in existence since 1952. There were 3 real property listers in this county in that history in 69 years. I was a department of 1, and it was like that with my prior 2 predecessors. Do you recall, as stated in the July 2013 minutes, why my position was merged into land management?
At this time, I do not recall that. I'm sure I have it in my notes and records, but I do not recall right now.
All right. I could go and explain those reasons, but I feel those reasons were fully explained in the January closed session meeting, and I would probably keep that in the closed session, just for the fact is there was a person not performing their job duties, and why I had to cover those job duties because it was having an effect on my job. So we'll just leave that at that, okay? I got a question for Supervisor Brandt. For the counties where the real property lister is located in the treasurer's department, what is that person's job duties? Who does the parcel mapping for that person along with other GIS job duties? What is my job title?
You know, during the, I think it was in the December meeting. Oh, sorry. We had asked Ann to create a map to show where real property lister lands in terms of other counties. And because there was no majority in terms of where the tax lister lands, it was clear that every county is unique and makes its own decision as to how important, what duties to assign, and whether or not it's a standalone department, or if it's with the treasurer, or if it's with the Register of Deeds, or if it's with land records. So actually, that's a great question, and one you probably know I can't answer because I haven't done the research on whether or not
Okay.
the work that's done by your team is done in the same other places.
Okay, so if I would be in the treasurer's office, my title is Real Property Lister, GIS Specialist, or GIS Specialist, Real Property Lister, whatever you want to call it. So if I'm in the Treasurer's Department, what is my GIS duties are going to be stripped away, and then who's going to fulfill those functions then?
You know, I think I had a conversation with you and Ann earlier. Beth's intention here is to begin a discussion and to alert the Exec Finance Committee that the possibility of a change is real, and that the alignment of your responsibilities and supervision may be changing. And that would have to be worked out clearly in terms of what the job description was. I know in our conversation last week, Beth actually, by reading the minutes, it indicated, reminded me of my confusion, which I expressed, because I had remembered you saying you had a desire to return to a one-person department, but I can see now that even buried in the narrative of the minutes is this sense that if tax lister can stay with land records, you would be happy to be under Ann's supervision. Is that basically what you're saying?
My goal right now is, when I took my position back in December of 2018, I had to accept that my supervisor was Ann, and I had fully accepted that from day one, just as I stated in that joint meeting. So the reason why I had stated that is if land records was not going to be detached from Department of Land Management in June, then I was going to formally ask to be detached, because I see no purpose of being drugged down what's happening in land management right now. So that's why I made the comments that I did. It was not to fully be a one-person department as I was prior to 2013.
You can see why we were confused.
Yep.
And this, I think, is why Beth has pursued the possibility of, correct me if I'm wrong, the possibility of finding another home for the tax lister. I know Lori has indicated that. What could you tell us what you were saying?
Yeah, I had been approached by a few of the Environmental and Land Use Committee members about this, and I told each of them that I would consider it if Ann and Nick were both on board with it. You know, I especially need Nick to be on board with it because Deanna's retiring this year. And if Nick's not on board and he comes into my office and is not happy and quits, I have 2 new people I have to hire then, which would be very hard for me.
So you'll be replacing Deanna too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's the caveat right there. So if, I think what I'm hearing you get at is detachment, and again, this is a discussion that's going to be held on Wednesday as well. Detachment with land records is the desirable outcome, and then the question becomes, who's the oversight committee? We assume it would be environment. It would be Exec Finance.
So when Ann and I were each individual departments, we had reported to Exec Finance, and that was a product of the Land Records Committee per se prior to, I believe it was 2002, if I recall. A bunch of committees all got kind of like gone and combined into other ones and stuff. So that was a product of how we ended up in Exec Finance.
And it seems to be the logical choice this time as well.
Correct.
Okay,
So
you guys, Ann, you would be down with that?
Yes, that's
Okay.
where I used to report.
So
Right.
Supervisor Killian, why did you not approach Ann with these questions, or myself?
I did not approach anyone with these questions because we're ready for discussion. It's coming up to 6 months, and these are my thoughts only, and we need to start the discussion.
Yeah, I think there's, in all the time I've been on the county board, this is one of the most difficult things for folks to grasp, is that discussion is not the same as decision. Decision comes after discussion. Just because it's on your mind doesn't mean it happens. none of us individually have the power to make these kind of changes. So, as I explained the other day, this is the beginning of the end of the discussion, and this is a great place to start it because, hey guys, you might be getting land records and tax lister.
But it sure would have been nice for us staff to know that this was coming instead of getting a phone call at the last second.
Well, actually, I think Ann saw it on the agenda, but, yeah.
But if this was being a thought in someone's mind, it should have been discussed with staff people ahead of time. This is part of the reasons why we're at the stage we are right now is because of the broken communication.
Okay. John, I'm sorry, Chuck, but
Go ahead.
John, I'm curious to hear what John's thoughts were.
Well, I was just thinking because of the building project coming up and there's really no place to really go permanent, that they could just stay right where they're at, although they're detached from the environmental land use department, and just bring that whole department back under exec finance and just leave them back there, because it seems to be working fairly well when I've been back there. It works pretty well that they all stay back in that same office they're in. It's just not part of environmental land use anymore. Move it over to exec finance where it used to be. And the reason I'm part of the problem I went into land use in the first place is because I thought, wow, land records and property lister sounds like land problems to me. Let's put it in with environmental land use, and that's where it all started. So I'll take the blame for it to start in the first place.
And if I can jump in on that, the committee will have to come up to speed on the importance of the work that land records and tax lister do, and it's, I'm a computer phobe, but I totally appreciate the beauty of the mapping and the layers in the GIS, and just the amount of information that can be available to staff and the public that comes out of that office. I've had folks point out that Nick has been very helpful in just about anything that's related to mapping and tax parcels and things like that. So.
I think they fit well together. It takes room. It takes room for the equipment they got in there, and they need it. And they seem to be, although I think they're crowded in the office they're in now, at least for the next 2 years until the new building's complete, this is probably the best situation, is right where they're at. But just change the committee they report to.
I have such a history in this position from what it was prior to 2003 to what it is now. And I'm all about making our land information program stronger every day. I have no issues with Lori. I work hand in hand with her and Deanna. I have offered to help them in July during tax payments, where before they would have to hire someone to come and help them. I've had no issues working with Rose. We all sit on a land information council together. But I'm about making our land information program stronger and continue to make it stronger. And any separation of my position away from land records would hinder that growth that we are anticipating. Just stop in our office and take a look at the whiteboard that we put up on our wall. I know Kellen has seen it. I mean, we have a lot of things that we are trying to get accomplished. And right now, with being in land management, is dragging us down really far right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the reason I asked for the detachment was because I was spending a lot of my time managing DLM staff, helping them with computer issues, helping them with mapping things, and I started to lose track of what I needed to do for the state. And then in the last 3.5 months, I've dedicated about 90% of my day managing DLM staff, and it's taken away from state programs that I need to get done.
Well, one thing I'd like to mention here is when we initially made the decision not to detach, physical space was a problem. We didn't have any place to put you, and it's my understanding now that, Lori, you would have an office that Nick could use in your department, or you're
Not really,
full?
unless you want to stick them in the safe.
I mean, maybe in the back room, but I don't No.
Okay.
I don't know if he would have room for all his computers and all that.
But what would be the reason for having
Yeah.
me sit in another room? This mostly sounds like a personnel issue than something else here.
I beg to differ, Mr. Gamroth. This is not a personnel issue. This is my thoughts on how to get your department detached in the most effective and efficient way. And that's why I brought it to executive finance. And I'm getting tired of being told that I am not doing my job and don't know what's going on. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Tim.
well, there's clearly a lot of history here. I started taking notes and gave up. I'm just wondering now, because I'm not sure what does everybody want? But if this committee approved detachment today, and if land management would have to do the same thing on Wednesday, right?
Actually, this is, I think that, correct me.
I'm just, okay, George, let me hypothesize
Oh, I thought
here.
you're
No,
looking,
I
you
said
looked at
if.
me, I thought.
Well, I
you
said
were-
if, and then it would have to go, it has to, since these people are now under land management, we would have to go to land management. You can't first, or then we have to come back here. Well, at any rate, if this move, or if this detachment got a provisional approval here today, and then if it went to land management and got approved, and then it probably would have to come back here and get approved again. But at any rate, if all those steps occurred, who would be the acting manager of the DLM? Since Ann would no longer be in the department, is my first question.
Can I answer? I was never put in the place as an acting director. I was just put in the place as a supervisor.
All right, so we still don't know what is we still don't have an outcome for the Kevin Lane situation. So, who would be running that department?
That'll be a discuss, in fact, it's on the agenda for Wednesday. Stay tuned. I don't, there is no answer, excuse me.
Okay, well, I'm glad
There
you
is no
brought it up
answer
then.
to that, but the committee needs to address that on Wednesday.
And really, it can't completely be addressed until we find the final decision with the Kevin Lean thing.
But that's a problem we have in the land records area right now, is because of what that is doing to our section. And it's becoming unfair to us and to my supervisor and of that, and it's having an effect on our work and what we need to do for the county, the residents, and the people that we work with.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead,
I'd
Tim.
like to address Mr. Gamrot. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Nick, so if this were to take place, do you recognize that you would then, Ann would no longer be your supervisor, your immediate supervisor, Lori would be your immediate supervisor?
No, I'm requesting that right now, my current supervisor is Ann, and I am in the land records department right now according to the current setup and what's on my job description. I report to the land records
No,
coordinator.
that if all these changes took place, you would then be working under Lori.
I think that would be the wrong move to do.
Well, who would you be working under?
I currently work under Ann right now.
Can you then clarify for me what would be the chain of command in that situation, that hypothetical situation? You are under Ann?
And I'm currently
Ann is
under, Ann would be reporting to exec finance.
So Ann is department head.
She's a department head right now.
I've held the title as a department head since since I went under land management. I go to all the department head meetings. I do my own budget. I pay my bills. I have been a department head, and I was prior to this too.
How did Lori get pulled into this?
Good question. I don't know.
That's what we're talking about, the broken communication that's been going on for the last year.
To me, the simplest thing is just basically leave it as is, except it's gonna report to exec finance instead of environmental land use. Then it'll at least work temporarily, and 2 years from now, they'll have their own basic
Well,
department.
here's the thing, if we go back to prior to, what year did you start in?
I started in 2009.
So it was roughly about 2010, or prior to 2010, I shared office space with the Land Records Department, the Land Records Coordinator, and the Land Records Technician. And, you know, they've been working hand in hand all along through everything. So it makes the most sense for those three positions to stay together as one department. And that's what it was set up after I left in May of 2016, was when Ann officially brought the real property lister GIS specialist under her supervision.
Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead, Tim.
May I address Mr. Gamron?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to set an example here. All right? So we don't argue? We ask the chair? Okay. Mr. Gamroth, when you were back in that cubbyhole over there where Tim Roberts is, who was your department, or what was the structure?
I was my own department, and I reported to exec finance. But then, in 2013, I merged with land management. I stayed in that area because there was no space down in the land management area. And then in 2015, land records got merged into land management, and that was at the same time period when dispatch and IT had to come out of the basement because of health issues. And within like 1 or 2 days, Tim, I had to move my office back into the land records room, currently where IT is right now. And I would have to say within a day or two, there was a secret morning meeting that we didn't know about. And we showed up at 8 o'clock in the morning and Ann and I were told that we had to vacate that room. So I have been moving around, but prior to 2013, I was my own department for 10 years.
Thank you.
Yep.
But as I understand it, you don't have a problem with it staying, like I suggested, just temporary. It's a long temporary. It's going to be close to 2 years before it changes. But
We're fine with sitting where we are, and we've been helping land management through all of this, and everyone's being professional towards each other, and I don't see why we would have to pick up and move.
It's just when Ann has to do all the supervisory type stuff for land management is where it brings us down.
yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I think I can say, because Beth was willing to begin this conversation today, we're probably about 75–80% of the way to making a decision on Wednesday. I think we've got the information we need, and we seem to have I have a feeling from the Exec Finance Committee that they would be willing to welcome land records back with a tax lister attached. So this was actually quite.
You need a motion, or you just want to?
Well, it's possible action, but I don't know if,
Mr. Chairman?
go ahead.
I guess I don't think we need a motion. I would too, if this is going to be some kind of a provisional decision by this committee, why even make it?
Yeah.
I would say, this is, as far as I can tell, it's a DLM problem. Let DLM make the decision, and on Wednesday. And I think this committee is willing to go along, or the committee members willing to go along with whatever that the DLM recommends.
So, Nick, what do you feel would be the best physical positioning for this?
Until the remodel is done.
Yeah, until the
I
remodel
mean,
is.
I think it's fine where we are. You know, I mean, I think if we weren't part of DLM, where Ann would have to sit there and deal with everything that goes on, and I don't want to speak for her, this is just my observation. If we wouldn't have to deal with everything that's going on in DLM, we're going to be more productive as employees, and that's what we come here to work for every day and stuff. So I understand Mr. Zeglin's, concern, who's going to deal with the staff and everything that's going on in there. But I think when we've been in these situations before, usually the chair of the committee steps in for those types of things. So, I mean, we do have alternate ideas or whatever that we could do, but ultimately, does it even pay to start shuffling people around when there's a bigger goal in mind? So,
Okay, anybody else have any comments?
One more, Chuck.
Go ahead, Tim.
Speaking of, well, I really wasn't concerned, but the question of who is supervisor is really key here, not so much the physical location. The real question is who is supervisor, because that means who fills out the timesheets, who's accounting for time. And if I understand, the whole problem started because of dispute over which employee should be where at what time and that sort of thing. So really, the changing the chain of command is significant because someone has to fill out those timesheets and report those timesheets. And that was the original problem.
And we will be discussing
That
on
is the
Wednesday.
key problem, not where they're sitting.
Right.
Anything else?
We'll come up, the committee, I'm sure will come up with options, and then we'll explore them. John's really good at, he's here every day anyways. Oh, thanks for turning on my mic.
Will you get
Jared.
all the John?
Yeah, John, there you are, yeah. There, yeah.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Supervisor Wallach, I mean, George brings up points about, this is a discussion and stuff, and I want some clarification on one thing from Ms. Killian when you stated that land records becomes supervised by exec finance, correct? Or that's who the oversight committee is? Why did you make the comments about you need to watch them closely?
I would suggest that Mrs. Killian does not have to submit the cross-examination at this meeting.
Yeah, I would agree, Nick. I think we've come to some conclusions already, and the discussion will continue on Wednesday.
Go ahead.
This isn't a trial of Mrs. Killian.
Go ahead, Beth.
I am just bringing my thoughts to this committee because this is the exact same script I am going to be using on Wednesday at the DLM. But if the exec finance committee is not at all amenable to accepting this change, then it doesn't pay for me to waste the time on Wednesday. And I'm sorry if Mr. Gamrath and Ms. Hempel have some issues with me, but this is my feeling, and I leave it as it stands. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, well, let me say, and all we're doing here is, we said, this is a discussion. We're looking at options right now.
Right.
And if there's nothing if none of these options fit, then we have to look for something else. But hopefully, we could have, what should I say, smooth this out a little bit, so at least we have a direction that we could be going? Okay,
Mr. Chair?
go ahead, George.
Just, Beth, I think, to your point, I think you can see that we're amenable or amenable. I think they're both legitimate pronunciations.
I mean, last night.
Go ahead, Tim.
It's really the same thing. I'd like to talk to Mrs. Killian. Beth, you got a sense of where we're at right now? Can you go, when you go to the meeting on Wednesday, do you have a sense of where exec finance is sitting?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we need, and then we accomplish something.
Okay, would anyone else like to make any comments before we end the discussion? Rick, do you want to say anything? You have nothing to say? Yeah,
I
okay.
was just going to mention, I thought, because Rick told me this part, that the county board rules will have to be amended also, so there would be county board action.
Wait a minute, can we do that this year?
You do it in an odd number of years.
Okay, I'm forgetting which.
Yeah.
There's some ordinance language that'll have to be cleared up if there are changes made. So.
Okay.
I thought you'd throw that in.
Sure,
so-
yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, anything else before we move on? Does that give you some direction, Beth, then, for Wednesday's meeting? And George, you're good with Wednesday then, too?
Ellen's here too.
Yep. And like I said, the reason we brought this to this committee was it's going to affect who we're in charge of.
Yeah.
And I think all the committee members needed to know that, and the people under, everybody needs to know where they're going to be if whatever we decide. So, nothing else? Okay, sounds good, thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, moving on to item number 10 then is request from CN Railroad, and we had a copy of that, didn't we? I
You
thought?
should have had a copy of the letter and probably a copy of the sample.
Okay, this is that Dave Woodruff?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so everybody has a
Um,
copy of this then, so,
It's not a formal resolution.
This one? No, they only want a letter of support,
Yeah.
and you'd have to decide if you want to even do anything.
I
you know?
like, I thought, Chuck, I'd like to talk about this.
Go ahead,
This is not a-
Tim.
I'm actually against this because I don't really want to get pulled into this. As far as I can tell, CN is merging with somebody, and they must be going to every county that they service or that they run tracks through, asking for a letter of support. There's no support argument in the letter. It just says, please agree with us. And I find it difficult to agree with anything in which somebody says, just here, sign on the dotted line, and why? So that, and also I've gone through not gone through, but witnessed numerous mergers of the farm co-op I belong to and the other co-ops, and every time there's a merger, it seems to me that the little guy or the smaller producers get shortchanged, and I'm afraid that is what's happening here. So I would suggest this committee simply ignore this request.
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, George.
Scary how much we think alike sometimes.
Yeah, I know, I review that every time. this happens. So
Every time he
totally-
agrees with me. My concern was, I mean, just starting out with the rationale for doing this, which, just a second here. Challenging times, yeah. Yes, we believe that the combination of our two great railroads would create a network that fosters competition and brings new sustainable transportation solutions. When you combine, when you merge, when you become a monopoly, you do not foster competition. I mean, their rationale is specious at best. And the CN does not need our support in anything. So even as I was thinking these thoughts and I'm saying them out loud, I'm thinking, well, what's best for the county as opposed to what's my gut feeling? And my gut feeling is the CN doesn't need us. What's best for the county is the CN doesn't answer to anybody. If they want to make life miserable for us, they can do that. There's nothing that they provide a service when it's good for them to provide that service, and when it's good for them to provide service to somebody else, as you mentioned, they'll provide service to them. So I agree with Tim. I think we should just ignore it. They'll do just fine without us.
They're going to do whatever they're good, looks good.
Yes, they will. And if we do, then they'll use us, say, well, Trempealeau County agrees with
Right,
this, and really, what do we have to say about it in the end?
Do you have any thoughts there, Mr. Niemeyer?
I had similar thoughts as what's being discussed here. It's very vague. I even there was a link that was provided in an email, and I went to that, and it was still just as vague as what everything else was as well. So
But I thought so.
this is one of those issues where I don't know why people didn't want to get involved. Just my thoughts.
Okay, any other comments? What, no action, is that what you're recommending then? Is that agreeable with all the committee members then, is we'll take no action on this?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think we don't need to vote on that, it's just as long as we all agree. Okay, anything else then? Okay, so we will not do anything with this. Okay, moving on then, funding for the electric bill for the county food pantry. And was that, Rick was gonna say
Yes,
something?
And I emailed it to you, but I brought copies down with me today.
Oh, please,
the
thank
draft
you.
of it.
If I can chime in
Go
here,
ahead.
Mr. Chair. So I was approached by the person who's currently managing, directing, overseeing, coordinating the food pantry that's at the healthcare center.
thank
That I had some clarification from Pat Malone. This is, at every municipality, thank you. Every municipality has a food pantry, but there is one food pantry in each county which is designated by the federal government, or the USDA rather, to accept donations from the federal government related to food. This food pantry, thank you. As you will recall, was struggling to find a home once Ashley bought out the hospital in Arcadia. It moved to the basement of the Lutheran Church in Strum, where it struggled because of lack of space and access. And then the suggestion was made that possibly it could find a home at the healthcare center. And it has been incredibly successful, not only because of the space and the access, but including handicapped access, but also because of the incredible work of the volunteers and the generosity of the healthcare center. Within the last month, Lori Glaunert and Dietz, what's his name? Jerry Dietz, approached the group to say, you know, one more freezer, and in this case, they were about the possibility of donation of a walk-in freezer, or room-size walk-in freezer, would have put the electric bill just beyond where they felt comfortable dipping into their funds in order to pay for it. And you're on the board, so you know this. Yep. And so David McCrae, whom I've known for 45 years, and we're a member of the same congregation, approached me because I was the only one on the county board that he knew personally, and said, is there something you think the county would do? And I said, thank you, David, for giving me this opportunity to help this food pantry, because I've done nothing for this food pantry. Working with Rick, we've taken, I actually haven't read this, but he's put in the, there's one thing, I'm doing way discussion before we're doing any reading, but
Should we probably get it on, I'll read the thing.
yeah, why don't you read it and then I'll
I'll
carry on. So that's the history, that's why it's here.
Okay, I'll read the resolution then. Okay, the resolution deals with financial assistance for the Trempealeau County Food Pantry. Whereas the Trempealeau County Food Pantry is an organization that operates out of Trempealeau County Health Care Center Annex Facility, and actually,
It isn't the annex.
it's not in the annex.
This letter, that's the only reason I used it.
Oh, okay.
So we should
okay.
cross out the word annex
Right.
then. Okay, yep, because it's not at the Independence site. Okay. Whereas since arriving at its current location, the pantry has assisted over 12,400 people with emergency food needs and has distributed over 413,281 pounds of food. And whereas the pantry is operated by numerous volunteers who have donated over 4,500 hours of volunteer time in the past 14 months. And whereas the need for the pantry services has increased significantly over the past 3 years, and as a result, the pantry has added additional freezers to store more food for distribution. And whereas due to the added freezers, the cost to operate the pantry have increased, in particular the electrical used to operate the additional freezers. And whereas the Trempealeau County Health Care Center has been covering the electricity costs on behalf of the pantry, however, due to the increase in electrical costs, the health care center is unable to continue covering this expense, and the pantry will be responsible for covering this expense going forward. And whereas the food pantry provides a valuable service in Trempealeau County, and taking on the electric expense would be a significant burden and adversely affect the services that it provides. And whereas the pantry estimates that its monthly electrical bill is approximately $600 per month, and is requesting that the Trempealeau County cover the electrical expense for the remainder of the calendar year 2001, May through December, in order for the pantry to maintain its current level of service. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby appropriates $5,000 from the general fund to cover the electricity expenses of the pantry for the remainder of the calendar year 2021.
I'd move to accept the resolution, or
Okay, we have a
approve the
motion
resolution.
I'll second it.
and a second to
For discussion.
open it up for discussion then.
Can I-
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just.
Yes, go ahead, Tim,
So-
or not, George.
Oh, man, now it's
I
getting.
didn't say a word.
I know.
My mistake.
So, David, this actually, that you don't need to see the details, but this is a chart of the numbers of people who have been served by the food pantry. If you can probably guess what that line is, that's the beginning of the pandemic. It spiked significantly in March and April and has stayed way above the previous averages. Beth, oh, see that back there. So the perhaps if we were to add a whereas at some point referring to the increase and continued increase related to the COVID outbreak, this would be something that might be available for some FEMA reimbursement. That was basically my spiel. There's a need. The volunteers are providing all of the labor between the American Legion and volunteers from Strum. The healthcare center has been gracious in its generosity. They've adapted over the last year on how to continue to serve people without a face-to-face contact. So I'm not trying to hide anything. It will be, if we approve this $5,000 for the rest of the year, I'll be bringing this to exec finance to make it a permanent line item on the budget.
If you do this, what committee is this going to be a permanent thing under exec finance? And who reports to exec finance that they need a budget for whatever amount this is every year?
The details have yet to be worked out. Lori Glaunert, have you had a chance to hear anything from Lori Glaunert?
I've not got any information.
Okay. Lori's response when I had relayed that I would be bringing this today was that she would hope that we would be flexible. Basically, they would be determining, the healthcare center would be determining what the electric bill would be every month. They're using amps and meters and, just getting it as close as possible to what it is they're using in terms of electricity. David McCrae was very insistent. There's something about farmers and trying to use as little of something as possible, that they would be doing everything they can to be as efficient with the freezers and the space that they use and so forth, so to keep the cost down. So the details would have to be worked out as to how it is the bill comes every month to the county and then how it gets paid. There would need to be an account line created for this.
And $600 is a substantial electrical bill.
I'd say.
It is, and the walk-in free, well, actually, I mean, the details are fuzzy because it actually hasn't happened. The walk-in freezer clearly would create a lot more need, but with a walk-in freezer, you're not going to need all of the small freezers that they're currently using. So, yeah, they use a lot of electricity, and they get a lot of food.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I'm glad George and John really anticipated my concern is that this is going to be an ongoing expense. So the resolution only asks for $6,000 for the rest of this year, but I can certainly anticipate that this will come back up and we'll be in the same position that we are with the fair and other projects like that. That kind of benevolent activity may be okay on the part of the county. The county is under no statutory compulsion to do this. All right, so we're doing a charitable deed. What I would like is someone from the food pantry to come here and make the sales pitch and tell us exactly, be something more persuasive than George's graph in terms of the
David's
need.
graph.
Of course, I can see this becoming $600 a month times 12 months, $7,200 a year from here on into infinity. And I don't know, again, I brought this up with something else last month. When Exec Finance sits down and does the budget, I mean, we get to the point we're trying to cut $500 here, $500 there, you all know that. And here we got the $7,200 charitable contribution that we've been making. So, and we'll more or less be expected to provide from here on out. So, George, you seem to be, did you bring this up?
Yes.
Could you contact whoever is some representative from the food pantry? And I mean, I'm willing to vote for it here at Exec Finance, but then it's got to go to the board and have that person make a presentation to the board about why the county should get involved with supporting the food pantry at
I'm sure
$7,000
David
a year
would be
and
happy to do
forever.
that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, question. How does this affect the local food pantries?
It's-
Are they gonna step forward and ask us the same?
Actually, not at all.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, I haven't spoken with any of them, nor have they contacted me. Sandy Whitty and Pat Malone work with, Sandy Whitty specifically, work with all the food pantries in the
Okay.
county. And they're frighteningly independent-minded. In other words, they want to do Galesville, they want to do Arcadia, they want to do Whitehall. They all have their own organizations and take their own contributions and have their own distributions. This is a separate entity designated by the federal government as the recipient for the food from the various food programs that the federal government does.
And this pantry then disseminates that food to the smaller ones. That's why hopefully we wouldn't get it from the individual. This
Right.
is where the big shipments come.
Right.
Right.
And then as the food gets distributed, then the locals take care of it.
Yeah, did I mention the loading dock, which is a whole lot nicer than trying to take it off the back of a truck and walk it downstairs, so.
Jack, could I ask George a question?
Sure.
George, you must be, I'm really completely unfamiliar with how this works. Does the food pantry have, how much physical space where in the healthcare building?
Well,
I mean,
Chuck can actually talk to that better
or
than
maybe
I
Chuck-
can.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
guess, I'm not sure. I have not been in there since they have.
It's in the old building,
the old-
which
yep.
is a CBRF. Part of it is used for the community-based
Right.
residential facility, but
They
then
have just set aside a room and something
but-
that's
yeah.
accessible to, because that was one of the problems they were having. Some of these food pantries, they were not accessible to disabled people, and
Mm-hmm.
and the healthcare center had a perfect spot for that. So that's why I just decided to move there.
So if you imagine the old healthcare center as having a number of wings, this has taken up one of the wings, or part of one of the wings.
So for the time being, the healthcare center can say, fine, we'll donate the space, because they've got they've got surplus space anyway. They're donating space for recycling. So it's fine, we'll donate the space, but we want the county to pick up the electric bill, which is really the one big expense.
Mr. Chair, to be clear, I was not approached by the healthcare center. The healthcare center was in negotiations with the food pantry to, when the food pantry came with the possibility of the donation of a walk-in cooler, that's when Jerry and Lori's alarm went off. Because, as you know, they run a tight budget, and the money that they get needs to be designated for certain things, of which electric bill for a food pantry may be on the
County
edge.
stay in the black, year
Yeah.
after year
Yeah.
after year.
So the question became, are there other sources? It's a chair, I'm excited for the county to be part of this. I mean, the county government to be part of it, because this is an opportunity for us to help meet a need, to be a small part of meeting a need. And that's a great thing.
And the people who receive this are all our constituents, not healthcare
Right.
center.
This is what,
The healthcare center was set up to do a different job.
right.
Our job is to supervise the activities in the whole county, that's where this food ends up.
And I guess that's another good point, is anybody in Trempealeau County who can get there can take part in this food pantry, and they do. They come from all over.
So if somebody's gonna take ownership, it'd probably be more Trempealeau County than the healthcare center. Is that an activity that we wanna support?
Yep, and I do have to add some information, and I had already told George about this as well. This topic has come up in the past about providing financial assistance to a food pantry. The Attorney General, not the current one, but the previous one, issued an opinion about 2 or 3 years ago that Attorney General's opinion was that a county cannot donate in any form to a food pantry, and went through an analysis under the law as to why they couldn't do so. Not everybody agrees with that opinion, and it's not precedent because it's not a court case. And so there is some disagreement with, and so some counties still do it, other counties have found other creative ways to get around it, type of a thing. But I just wanted the committee to be aware too that there is that Attorney General opinion out there that says that Attorney General didn't think that legally a county could donate to a food pantry.
Which Attorney General was that?
Who's under Walker? Is it Van Hollen or no? It's a big.
Yeah, that would figure, yeah.
So I just needed to make sure that you guys were at least aware of that. When you guys
So this would be considered a donation? Okay.
That makes me think that this is not something you're gonna be able to get under FEMA.
Right. Yeah, no
Well,
question.
We're not supposed to be doing
Mr.
that.
Chair, just to point out, it was an opinion, it's not law, it's not a precedent, and I certainly can imagine his reasoning, which I would not agree with, but I'm not the Attorney General, so.
And you can imagine the backlash if we don't agree to pay the electrical bill, the healthcare center decides not to pay it, so they can't take food. If that gets out in the public that nobody wants to support the food pantry, what kind of black eye is that gonna give the different organizations?
It's similar to the fair.
I
Yeah,
had one other comment, we've always had this argument for years now, that the county actually owns the
health-
land and
yeah.
and they get all the land rent. It's a pretty substantial chunk of money they get from land rent from the Blair Farm and the other farms, which is way more than this electrical bill. So I don't know. That was my only reason for probably not supporting it.
But we, because I'm on the healthcare center board, we get information that they send a lot of money back to the county every year, don't they? They
No.
don't? I thought there was,
We don't get any money from the healthcare center.
I thought,
They stay in the
But they
black.
don't
They
cost
stay in
us
the black.
anything either though, so that's,
Yeah, they don't, there's no tax impact on it.
no.
But we don't get any money back.
I thought they said they usually make some donations. Okay, wow.
I can double check, but I don't think so.
Okay, any other comments? What be your,
I'm with
Rick asked
Tim.
the-
Let's have somebody come before we move forward. That's what I would
okay,
like to see.
And Rick can check the new, our new Attorney General, and see what his opinion is. See if it's,
Well,
compare.
in terms of,
How are you gonna vote here right now?
well, actually, Doc,
I
if
don't want to do
if,
anything right now.
just put a table it, or-
Yes,
would that be a motion then? or-
You make a motion.
motion to table it for a month.
I'll second.
okay. Okay, so we have, well, any other discussion? Well, okay, all those in, well, any other comments before we vote?
And with the request that
Right.
we had a representative from the food pantry come back here to this committee and explain, justify not just this 70, this expense, but
The possibility.
anticipated and future expenses.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so all those in favor of tabling this until we hear more from the food pantry, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, so we'll have to make sure we put that on the next
I got
agenda.
it.
Okay.
Okay. And Rick, thanks for doing this, and we can maybe, yes,
If there's any tweaks to it on that.
right, just erase the
One word
annex
take
word.
off.
I already took that off, so that's up.
Okay, moving on to our COVID update, reimbursement.
I don't have too much to report, other than we have a meeting with Integrity today at 1 o'clock. I got the final report of everything, so I think they're going to be submitting, as soon as we say today at 1 o'clock, to submit that first one, which is going to be over $600,000. We're already starting to put some bills together for the second wave, which have to come pretty fast because we have to be done by September. That's about all I have to report.
Okay. Okay, before we set the next time of meeting, are there any things we should add or delete from the agenda? We definitely will need to put on this food pantry item, and you,
It may be, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm following your lead, Tim. The discussion action on land records detachment from environment land use, the possible changes to ordinance language, as well as the county board rules.
okay, so, yeah, so keep that item, that,
Have
some, if you
I'll
want to
have
reword
Rick
it.
help me
Reword it.
He's the one that worded it this time, so.
Okay, and then we'd need one from the food pantry.
Yep, I got that one.
Anything else that anybody thinks we need to bring up? And we can always make adjustments as, yep, that will be June. Okay, then setting our next date, June 3rd would be the first Monday. I'm done with school then, so would you rather go back to 9 o'clock?
I sure would, Chuck.
I would.
Okay,
Would I ever?
okay, so we'll go June 3rd at 9 o'clock.
Would you say the date?
June 3rd.
June,
Isn't that a Monday?
June 7th.
Or,
Turn the,
oh,
Oh.
that's April, that's why. Okay, let's take a look then. Okay, my mistake that
Be
somebody
June
didn't.
7th, I think.
June
right?
7th, yes, June 7th at 9 o'clock. How many people have looked at that calendar?
What's that?
How
well,
many people have looked at the calendar?
today's the first day of that new
Yeah.
calendar.
Okay, anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll adjourn the meeting then at 9:18.